This is True News, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help us God. Every spring, Russia holds its massive Victory Day parade. Approximately 65,000 Russians, including 12,000 troops, march in the parade. The first parade was held on June 24, 1945, to celebrate the defeat of the Nazis in World War II. Thereafter, the giant patriotic parade has been held on May 9 to commemorate the defeat of Nazi Germany by marking the end of the Eastern Front of World War II. Now, if an influential French general has his way, World War III will greatly heat up next May 9. General Michel Yakovleff wants the Ukrainian army to blow up the Russian parade. Let's look at his Telegram post. Doc, let's read this.
So this is from Telegram, and it says, French General, former Deputy Chief of Staff of the Joint Forces of NATO in Europe, Michel Yakovleff, on the need for Ukraine to strike at Red Square during the Victory Parade. They, the Ukrainians, could make other attacks, and this time the blow could become much more symbolic. For example, in terms of the range they showed, they could reach Moscow. It could be the next big parade in Moscow. It's a military target.
This is no lightweight. This French general is a retired French Army general, 40 years service in the French Army, 3-star Vice Chief of Staff at Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe. This is NATO. Right. He served under 3 Supreme Allied Commanders of Europe from 2009 to 2016. And he was on a French television show in recent days proposing that the Ukrainians deliver missile strikes on the Moscow Victory Day parade next May 9.
And what's really telling about this particular post, Rick, is he actually believed that the Ukrainians could reach Moscow. Now think about that. That means that he has the confidence of saying to the Ukrainians, you can do this, boys. You can make this happen.
What he's doing is he's giving them permission to do it.
Without telling them to do it. So
what we're learning is that this is the current NATO method of communication. We didn't tell you to do it, but we gave you an idea and said you could do it.
Yes.
I think we have a video from the French television news interview. Let's watch it. It has English subtitles.
Ils pourraient faire d'autres attaques, et cette fois-ci beaucoup plus symboliques. Par exemple, dans la portée, ce qu'ils ont montré dans leur tir, c'est qu'en fait, ils auraient pu tirer sur Moscou aussi. Donc, par exemple, ils pourraient très bien dire, le prochain grand défilé à Moscou, c'est une cible militaire.
Oui. So this was on like their version of Meet the Press or Sunday morning talk shows where he's being interviewed about the potential for Ukrainians to be able to reach Moscow and encouraging that kind of action. The Victory Day parade, we were talking about this earlier, Rick, it'd be like the 4th of July Day parade here in the U.S. Probably even bigger than that because for the Russians, that date in 1945 is a big date for them. So, but for a former joint Allied commander to come out and suggest, hey, why don't you blow up a bunch of Russians on Victory Day? It'd be akin to somebody saying, why don't you blow up a bunch of Americans on the 4th of July?
And Doc, he pointed out that there would be thousands of Russian soldiers and veterans in that parade.
Right.
And so he specifically recommended hitting a parade that would have a large presence of Russian military leaders and political leaders in attendance. I mean, just the parade itself, 65,000 people in the parade, not watching the parade,
yes,
but in the
parade.
Unbelievable. Well, a Russian senator had something to say about it. This is Alexei Pushkov.
Yes.
And he didn't hold back on his words in terms of his his response to this call for attacking Russia's Victory Day parade.
Yes, Rick. Russian Senator Alexei Pushkov on Sunday commented on the call of French General Michel Yakovleff to fire at the Victory Day parades coming up on May 9th. Now, last week, retired General of the Foreign Legion Michel Yakovleff suggested that the armed forces of Ukraine carry out symbolic attacks on the venues of mass events on May 9th. He noted that a column of marching soldiers in Red Square could be a suitable military target. Well, Pushkov said these political idiots may well bring matters to a direct clash between NATO and Russia. He's sitting in Paris talking about a strike on Moscow with an empty head and a complete lack of understanding of the possible consequences. And Ms. Pushkov wrote that on his Telegram channel in response to what has been released by this French general as well. So they're not sitting back and just taking it. They're calling out names of those that are potentials. So, Rick, another article that kind of sends a message but doesn't send a message is the Pentagon is giving Ukraine a green light for drone strikes inside Russia. Now, they didn't come out and say you got the go-ahead to do it. But what they did say is, we're not going to stop you if you did something.
And we're not telling you not to do it.
That's right.
So this is the second example today that we're showing you. This is the new method of communication that NATO is sending messages to the Ukrainian military, and they're doing it in public.
Yes.
This is not private communication. This is public communication where a Western military or political leader will make a statement either saying this is something the Ukrainian military could do if they wanted to, or they say if the Ukrainians did something like this, we're not going to tell them not to do it.
Right.
But we're not telling them to do it. We're simply not telling them not to do it, which is obviously they're giving them the permission to carry out the strike. So
the Pentagon has given a tacit endorsement of Ukraine's long-range attacks on targets inside Russia after President Putin's multiple missile strikes against Kiev's critical infrastructure. They said, we're still using the same escalatory calculations, but the fear of escalation has changed since the beginning, a U.S. defense source told the Times. It's different now. This is because the calculus of war has changed as a result of the suffering and brutality the Ukrainians are being subjected to by the Russians. Now, Washington does not want to be seen publicly giving the green light to Kiev attacking Russian soil. Its position on Ukraine's attacks inside Russia was defined this week by Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State. He said, we have neither encouraged nor enabled the Ukrainians to strike inside Russia. However, a U.S. defense source said, we're not saying to Kiev, don't strike the Russians in Russia or Crimea. We can't tell them what to do. It's up to them how they use their weapons. But when they use the weapons we have supplied, the only thing we insist on is that the Ukrainian military conform to the international laws of war and to the Geneva Convention. They are the only limitations, but that includes no targeting of Russian families and no assassinations. As far as we're concerned, Ukraine has been in compliance.
All right, so Doc, you're angry at your neighbor. You got this dispute over a fence between the property line, and I hand you a loaded gun, and I go, Doc, here's my .45. Now, don't shoot your neighbor, but do whatever you want to do.
Right. Defend yourself, but
this is what NATO is doing with the Ukrainians. They're saying, here's a loaded weapon, here's the missile launcher, here are the drones, whatever you need. Just play within the rules.
Don't break the law.
The international, don't break the international law.
And don't assassinate anyone, which they've already violated, probably. So, well, this is a further escalation here that the West seems to completely ignore, but Vladimir Putin's not ignoring this at all. Russian President Vladimir Putin is warning that the risk of nuclear war is rising. This is number 13 for control. We actually have a bit of video here with President Putin talking about these nuclear threats.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that the risk of nuclear war is rising. He's talked about the use of atomic weapons as deterrence and says he may take a more American approach. Putin spoke with reporters at a regional summit in Kyrgyzstan. He said Russia has no mandate to launch a first strike, but says the U.S. enjoys no such limitations.
If we talk about a preemptive disarming attack, maybe we should adopt the practice of our American partners, their ideas of keeping themselves safe. We're thinking about it.
So basically what he's saying is we could adopt the same policy the U.S. now has. The U.S. now has a first strike policy. And we have now for a little over a year.
Yes.
So maybe we should adopt that. I mean, that's what Vladimir Putin is saying at this point.
But Doc, we're at the place here at the end of 2022 where leaders of nuclear-armed nations are openly talking about first strikes against another nation. In my lifetime, this is unheard of. Never would any world leader even utter the words. It was so unthinkable that a leader of a nuclear nation would even openly discuss the use of those weapons.
Do you think it's because we're not afraid of nuclear war anymore? I mean, as a kid, you remember hiding under your desk at school? Not that your desk was going to protect you from a nuclear blast or anything, but remember the drills we would have in elementary school and everything? We'd hide under our desk. That was scary. That was like, look, somebody's going to blow us up.
Yes, I think the Russians are probably puzzled that nothing bothers the American people. I think they're puzzled. Like, the American public is so medicated on so many pharmaceutical drugs and so mesmerized by entertainment that open discussion of nuclear annihilation doesn't even affect them. Nothing bothers the American people anymore. And that includes warnings from God.
No, I was going to ask, isn't that really a reflection of the spiritual condition as well?
It's
where we
stupor.
just assume, well, God will never do anything to me.
Yes.
Go ahead, God. Do what you want to do. We're going to eat. We're going to be entertained. We're going to do all these things. We're not afraid of you, God, either.
Because they chose to believe a lie, he sent a deluding spirit.
Yes.
And the American people are saturated in a delusional spirit, and nothing bothers them. And if a prophet came to this country right now with the fire of John the Baptist, it wouldn't bother the American people. There would be no repentance. If Jonah walked across America saying you've got 40 days to repent, it wouldn't bother. He would be mocked. He'd be vilified. It'd be booed. The American people would not respond to Jonah.
Right.
And what did Jesus say about, what did he say to the people that rejected him? And he said, it's going to be better for Sodom and Gomorrah on that day. Think about this country right now. It would be better for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than it will be for America.
That's hard to even comprehend because we were in Jordan. We saw what remained of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right, which is nothing. Charcoal.
Just black rock, burnt. And it's hard to imagine you would look at the landscape of America and consider that the same way. And yet that's not beyond God's ability at all. But nothing scares the American people.
Nothing bothers the Christians in this country.
Yeah.
They're just as deluded. We ought to have round-the-clock prayer meetings going on right now. There ought to be calls for repentance. That should have been happening years ago. There's nothing. Nothing. Zip. The churches are quiet. Doctor, nothing. There's no warning whatsoever that will reach the American people right now. Nothing. I came to that realization some years ago, because this ministry started 1998 with a warning. And for years, that's the only thing that drove me. Warn the people, warn, tell them.
And that warning was based upon destruction.
Destruction. The Lord gave me a vision in 1998. I saw the country burning. And for years, I was propelled by the energy that came from that vision, that I had to tell the American people, or their blood would be on my hands. And then I reached a point some years ago where I realized they're not going to repent. They're not going to do it. There's not going to be a turnaround. Not only the unsaved, but the so-called saved, the church members aren't going to respond. Nothing phases them. Nothing bothers them. 9/11 didn't do anything. Nothing.
Financial collapse didn't do it.
Yes. A pandemic, man-made, it didn't bother them either. They went along with it. They got vaccinated.
And even the sellout for political reasons, the only victory they could even halfway claim is the reversal on Roe versus Wade. But Rick, there are still as many abortions today as there was a year ago.
Right.
Do you think the rescission of Roe versus Wade changed really the number of abortions?
It didn't change.
No, because it didn't change the hearts of America.
That's right. And there's more abortions taking place by pill than by knife.
Right.
And so the Americans just found an easier way to murder their babies. Nothing bothers them. Nothing. And so I've resigned myself that there will be a calamity in this country. There will be a calamity. And the survivors will wail and weep and say, why didn't we stop it? We saw it coming, we knew it was coming, but we didn't do anything. Because everybody just got caught up into, like, we're just going to go along with it until it happens.
Right.
I mean, look at what's going on with the sexual perversion of children in this country, and there's no outcry.
None.
And if you do lift your voice against it, the perverts come after you like wolves. The perverts are emboldened. The sexual deviants are fearless right now.
Yes.
They're begging God to strike this country. And Putin's telling us he's going to do it.
Right. And it's not just limited to the United States. A number of Western nations who have a Christian background or general Christian culture, they're in this target too. The story out of Australia here. We've got Mr. Medvedev always has something to say here. Australia, talking about Australia here in this particular article, poses such a risk to Russia that it's rushing to build the next generation victory weapons in response, or so the story goes. We are increasing production of the most powerful means of destruction, including those based on new principles. That's coming from former President Dmitry Medvedev. He said, our enemy has dug in not only in the Kiev province of our native Malorossiya, it is in Europe, North America, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and a whole number of other places that pledged allegiance to the Nazis. Malorossiya is a mythical reference to Ukraine, meaning Little Russia. So once again, Mr. Medvedev and Mr. Putin and those in leadership in Russia see this as a battle not just for the values that exist, but they're still fighting the Nazis, Rick. This is a war against the Nazis.
Well, the Nazis have taken over most of those nations.
That's right.
Australia was the most Nazified nation during the COVID pandemic.
Right.
Australia led the way with Nazi concentration camps for infected people. Unbelievable what went on in Australia. The Nazis took over Australia. They took over New Zealand. They have Canada. They have the United States. They have Great Britain. The Nazis are in control. They're the World War II Nazis who changed from uniforms to business suits. And now their younger replacements are running these Nazified Western countries. I'll say it again. We defeated Germany. We did not defeat the Nazis. And it's so crazy that you have delusional, I'm not going to call them patriots. I'm not going to call them conservatives. They're not. They're delusional. You have people defending, so-called on the right, defending the Nazis.
Yes. That's how far it's come.
You know, I came up against it a couple of weeks ago on Gab when I spoke out against Kanye West on InfoWars, bragging about Hitler and the Nazis. They're so delusional that they are defending Hitler and the Nazi Party, and that's how deeply that's how deep the infiltration of Nazism in this country is. That it's reached into the so-called conservative movement, and you have people who think that they're conservatives calling themselves Nazis. They're conservative Nazis, really? No, the Nazis were socialists, and they were most of them were gay, and they were in the occult. They practiced sorcery. Hitler derived his powers from occult sources. And so we have people in this country that are edifying and building up and promoting Nazism. Doc, I never in my lifetime ever thought I would see a Nazi movement in this country. I mean, the left is crazy, the right is crazy. This is weird. It's totally weird. The whole country has become weird.
Right.
And I think a lot of people watching me right now, you know it's weird. You feel the weirdness.
Yes.
You know it's strange. You know it's bizarre. Nothing makes sense anymore. There is no normalcy anymore. Weird is now normal. Bizarre is normal. Extreme is normal. And if you don't go with one version of the extremism, you're at risk.
That's right. Yeah, you're the one that's the problem, for the left or the right.
Yes. So the left and the right are becoming so extreme that they're going to meet.
Now, reading Jeremiah right now, he faced the same problem, very same problem. He had two factions that he was dealing with. You had those that wanted to restore Israel and the nation, and others that said, let's just give in to everything that's going on. Let's just make these alliances. Let's do things the way the other nations are doing it. They're sacrificing kids. We can sacrifice kids too. So he was pulled right in the middle.
Right.
His message struck, both sides of the fence there.
But what happened to Israel?
God had to wipe it out, basically plow it under.
Yeah.
So, and that's what he'll do to any nation that continues to reject him. Why, if he would plow under Israel, why wouldn't he plow under America? There'd be nothing to restrain him from that. It's within his power.
And Doc, his divine judgment strikes nations that have known his kingdom.
Yes.
See, that's what set Israel apart from the other surrounding nations. They had a covenant with God. They had tasted the goodness of God, and they rejected him. And they became treacherous harlots, treacherous adulterers, idolaters, and God called them treacherous. And so their sin was worse than their neighboring nations that had never worshiped God.
Right.
Because they had worshiped God and then turned against him. America, at one time, worshiped Jesus Christ, and now America has rejected Jesus Christ and has completely turned away from the Lord. And what's left of the churches is a shell. It's an empty shell. It's a harlot church. It's not the real church. I'm talking about it on the so-called evangelical Protestant side. It's not the real church anymore. You know, for years I heard Protestant evangelicals say that the Roman Catholic Church was the harlot church. Well, let me tell you, the Roman Catholic Church, with all of its sins and faults, hasn't done anything as bad as what the evangelicals are doing right now. You want to talk about harlotry? They have deserted Christ, and they're afraid to stand for righteousness. They're cowards. If there's anything to lay against them, it's their cowardliness. Timid, wimpy cowards who will not stand for Jesus Christ.
And they're wrapped up in the word tolerance.
Yes.
They'll tolerate every sin in the world. They'll tolerate it.
Yes.
Well, tolerance isn't a Christian value.
No.
We're not supposed to tolerate sin.
No. And I told you, I got one of the titles for a book. I don't know if I ever write it, but you know that the American church has become as tolerant as hell, because that's what they are. They tolerate hell. They're willing to tolerate hell. And anybody that begins preaching a real message of righteousness and holiness and repentance, they are excommunicated.
Oh, yes.
From the evangelical churches. It is unthinkable that this has happened in the USA, but they got infiltrated from within. They were taken over from within. And it's just what happened to the German churches, that many of them succumbed to Nazism, not because they believed it, but because they feared it.
They tolerated it.
They tolerated it until they had nothing left. And at one point, Hitler had probably 1 million Christians in prison, in concentration camps, the ones that would not submit. And you know, if God does not intervene in this situation, that's probably where we're going in this country. You know, I came back from Jordan. I was only there about 3.5 days. Doc, I have so much more freedom in Jordan.
Imagine the irony of that.
I have respect in Jordan. People respect me. People like me. I'm well received every place I go. In a Muslim nation, and I'm respected. I walk into restaurants, people know me. They speak to me. I go into meetings, people walk up to me. In airports, they speak to me. Doc, you and I have a very large presence in Jordan and other Middle Eastern countries.
I still remember the time we were sitting in a restaurant, I think it was the end of one of our trips earlier this year, and a gentleman came up and said, "You're the newsman." Yes. Just out of the blue, "You're the newsman." Here we are in Jordan, we don't know anyone. Someone comes up, "You're the newsman."
Happens all the time. But it's the level of respect that they show us. And gratitude. Thank you. This is what I hear over and over and over.
Yes.
Thank you for speaking the truth. We watch you. We appreciate you. I come to America and I get hate mail. I get vilified. I get deplatformed. I get hatred dumped on me. I go to a foreign country and I get respect. What's going on here, Doc? This country has become anti-Christian.
Oh, wow.
It is anti-Christian. It is against Christ.
And a Muslim nation, a generally cultural Muslim nation, has opened.
Yes.
Said, we're not against Christ.
No.
We're not anti-Christ.
Not at all. And they know I'm a Christian. They know I'm preaching, and they welcome me. It's the spirit of Antichrist is so strong in America. The Christians don't even realize it. And the few that do, they're afraid of it.
Yes.
I guess we should go on. Let's go on to, this is number 18. A U.S. Global Hawk drone spotted near Crimea.
Yes, now they spotted this on radar. An American reconnaissance drone, the Northrop Grumman RQ-4B Global Hawk with call sign FORTE-10, circles over the neutral waters of the Black Sea near Crimea. As the Flight Radar 24 service recorded on December 12th, the drone has been flying for several hours, and according to the portal, an unmanned aerial vehicle took off from the NATO Naval Air Base Sigonella on the Italian island of Sicily at about 11 o'clock Moscow time. So once again, we just see this slowly, step-by-step escalation, pushing boundaries, trying to draw fire, trying to find out what's going on. And one of these days, there's going to be a drone strike or something's going to happen, and that's going to be the spark that sends all the fire out.
Crimea and Sevastopol are both on high alert right now, Doc.
Right.
Remember, the Ukrainians carried out that surprise attack a few months ago on the Russian Navy.
Right.
The Russians are bracing for another one. I would keep my eyes on Crimea and Sevastopol for another major attack. And they seem to be targeting, they're getting closer to Moscow. Putin today canceled his big end of the year press conference where he goes all day long and answers questions.
Oh, I didn't know he'd done
Yes.
that. Okay.
So I don't know if it's a security issue, but that's a change in his behavior, because it's something he's always relished, is just to be there on live TV, answer questions all day long. I mean, sometimes he goes, 10, 12 hours?
Right.
Answering questions from citizens, but not this time. So I think they're they're increasingly being drawn into a state of war, expecting a surprise attack somewhere that Putin is located at. The next one, this was number 21. Sergei Lavrov said that he accused the United States of enslaving the European continent.
Right. He spoke these comments at the conference that him and Mr. Putin have attended in Kyrgyzstan. So he made these comments today, but they were some pretty telling comments. So let's watch this.
Мы, конечно же, помним, как создавалась НАТО, когда первый генеральный секретарь Альянса, господин Смей, вывел формулу «держать русских вне Европы, американцев в Европе, а немцев под контролем». Сейчас то, что происходит, абсолютно означает возвращение НАТО к тем концептуальным приоритетам, которые были выработаны 73 года назад. Ничего не изменилось. Русских хотят держать вне Европы. Американцы хотят, да уже поработили всю Европу, а под контролем держат не только немцев, а весь Европейский Союз. Так что никуда после прекращения холодной войны философия доминирования, односторонних преимуществ не исчезла.
Think about it. I mean, World War II settlement terms are still in place.
Right. They really are.
And the only thing that's going to change them is World War III. And then there will be World War III settlement terms for the next 7,500 years until World War IV.
Should the Lord tarry.
Yes.
So, as they say. Well, that's not the only place in the world that we need to keep an eye on. There's always things happening in the Middle East, and we have this from the Times of Israel. The Saudi foreign minister says that all bets are off if Iran makes a nuclear weapon. Saudi foreign minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud said Sunday that the Islamic Republic's Gulf neighbors will not sit by if Tehran produces nuclear weapons. He said if Iran gets an operational nuclear weapon, all bets are off. Al-Saud told reporters at the World Policy Conference in Abu Dhabi, "We are in a very dangerous space in the region. You can expect that regional states will certainly look towards how they can ensure their own security," he added, without elaborating on what that could entail. Well, what it means is they're going to ramp up their own nuclear security too. In a way, if Iran were able to prove that it had the ability to deliver a nuclear weapon, wouldn't that be the response of Saudi Arabia? They're going to make a deal with somebody, whether it's the U.S. or China. And based on the meeting last week with Xi Jinping, there are some new partnerships that are building up there.
That's right. And you'll see one of those nations, either the U.S. or China, putting nuclear weapons in the Middle East.
And it's interesting
to guard the Middle East from Iran.
Right. And it's interesting that he makes these remarks right now as the Chinese president returns back to China. Because remember, just a couple weeks before, they were saying, if we want to see a restoration of the relationship with the U.S., we're going to need a couple things. One of those things was, we're going to need to develop our own nuclear weapons.
Yes.
And they said that in so many words.
Yeah, a nuclear program.
Right.
But
yeah, it's not to deliver energy.
Yeah,
but
you could read between the lines, and a security guarantee for the Middle East. Let's turn our attention to the Twitter files, because this is one of the biggest scandals in American history, and the news media is not talking about it. And the reason they're not talking about it is they're part of the scandal.
Right.
That's why they don't want this topic to be discussed, because if all the documents come out, a lot of trails are going to lead to the editorial offices of major newspapers and websites and television networks, and I suspect that over at Facebook and YouTube and Google,
you think they're shredding documents?
I think they're
banging hard drives with hammers, and
I think they've got Hillary Clinton on the phone saying, "Tell us quickly, how did you do it? How did you get rid of all of your documents and destroy your devices?" Because they know that if any whistleblowers inside YouTube or Facebook begin releasing documents, you've got the same scandal that's going to be taking place in other tech companies. And hopefully that'll happen. Hopefully there's somebody that has internal documents that they will release from Facebook and YouTube showing how they colluded. Doc, not only do I believe that these tech companies, I mean, there's nothing coming out that we're shocked about or surprised by.
No. It just confirms what we already suspected.
Right. But I think what is going to shock a lot of people is when the evidence is revealed that the tech companies colluded among themselves.
Right.
That there was a cabal. That Facebook and YouTube, Google, Twitter, and other tech companies actually discussed censorship among themselves and plotted and planned how to control the discussion of public issues in this country.
And how to get certain people elected.
Yes. So. And working with government agencies. Because the evidence is out now that a bucket full of alphabet agencies were working with the tech companies.
Yes. Either former employees working there or people that were embedded within the organization.
They were having weekly meetings
Yes.
with the FBI.
Yes.
And the National Intelligence Director. Weekly meetings. This is, you want to talk about Nazism, fascism? This is what fascism looks like.
Well, this particular Twitter file dump that's going on right now, this is the 5th installment of this. This is from the New York Post here. The 5th Twitter files released details on the Trump ban despite no wrongdoing. Now, this 5th installment of the bombshell Twitter files revealed Monday that staffers inside the social media giant pushed for former President Donald Trump to be barred following last year's Capitol riot, despite the company finding no policy violations in the former president's tweets. Now keep that in mind. They arbitrarily banned him, not for any violations. Now, according to journalist Barry Weiss, Trump tweeted twice on the morning of the 8th, once to praise the almost 75 million Americans who voted for him in the election and proclaim they will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. Pretty innocent tweet there. In a second tweet, Mr. Trump announced he would not attend Mr. Biden's inauguration on the 20th. Now, in Wiles' telling, the first tweet caused an uproar among Twitter's employees, with one writing in an internal communication, "We have to do the right thing here and ban this account." "Extraordinary circumstances demand extraordinary leadership," another wrote, while a third added, "It's pretty obvious he's going to try to thread the needle of incitement while not violating the rules." However, according to Wiles, the people in charge of determining whether the former president's post merited a ban saw nothing wrong with either message. "I think we'd have a hard time saying this is incitement," wrote one official. "It's pretty clear he's saying the American patriots are the ones who voted for him and not the terrorists. We can call them that, right?" From January 6th. And so it goes on to say, "I don't see the incitement angle here," Second Monitor agreed, while policy official Annika Navroli concurred, "I also am not seeing clear or coded incitement in the DJT tweet. I'll respond in the elections channel and say that our team has assessed and found no violations for the DJT one." But they still banned him anyway.
Yes,
right?
because one particular person put heavy-handed pressure on Twitter, Michelle Obama.
That's right.
She demanded that President Trump be banned. And immediately thereafter, the Twitter snowflakes fell in line with Mrs. Obama, and the outgoing president of the United States was humiliated by a group of little leftist snowflakes in San Francisco stripping him of his account to speak to tens of millions of people who followed him on Twitter. And they set the precedent that you can silence a president of the United States of America.
That's the power they had.
And they talked about it in their internal documents, Doc. They talked about it. Like, we are now, you see it in the various communications where they were saying, we are now taking on power to silence presidents. This will be done in the future. And they were very aware of what they were doing, that they had entered unknown territory, but they were going to do it. The one thing that stands out the most, and again, we're not shocked that they did it. That's why we could spend an hour or two here just reading the internal documents.
Right.
What's the point? You know it, I know it, documents, we all know it. They silenced conservatives and Christians and patriots for years. We knew what was going on. They either shadow banned us so that our messages wouldn't go out,
Or directly banned you.
or they directly banned people and shut down their accounts. And they always refused to tell you what you violated.
Yes.
Because you violated our community standards. Well, what are your community standards? We can't tell you.
So, like in
But
our,
if you do it again, you're in trouble.
so like in our case, when True News was banned from Twitter, we were simply reposting an article that had been published
In Ireland.
In Ireland, but it was on Twitter,
Yes.
on that particular news site.
But our crime was we asked a question about that article. We didn't make a statement. We asked a question. And the question made little snowflakes at Twitter uncomfortable. But we now know it's more than the little snowflakes. It's FBI agents. It's the CDC. It's the White House. There were government agencies, government officials talking to Twitter executives every day about who had to be shut down.
And the shadow White House, too, because now we know Michelle Obama was involved.
Absolutely. So the thing that stands out is how much they lied. Think about it, Doc. Let's go back to, say, 2016. And they lied to the public. Oh, we don't shadow ban anybody. We don't target conservatives. We don't target Christians. We're not doing that. They were lying every time they said it. They were lying. And they knew they were lying. And Jack Dorsey lied before the U.S. Congress. He went under oath and told members of the U.S. Congress Twitter did not shadow ban people and Twitter did not target conservatives. He lied under oath.
He either lied or he's the dumbest CEO that has ever existed.
Right. So bring him back in under oath and ask him which one it is. Did you not know what your company was doing, or did you lie under oath? Because eventually there's going to be an internal document that's going to come out that's going to identify the answer to that question. But they knew they were lying. The rest of them knew they were lying.
Yes.
And the news media knew they were lying because it was all one big happy cabal. And they were controlling the election. Doc, this was more than political interference. To just say that big tech interfered in the election, that is so elementary in terms of the crimes that they committed.
Right.
It's beyond criminal. What they did is treasonous.
Let's call it that.
It's treasonous.
Yeah, let's call it that, because that's exactly what it is, isn't it?
Yes.
They sought to take down
The President of the United States.
Yes.
And to disenfranchise tens of millions of Americans and to strip them of their constitutional right to speak their minds. And then to use bots, tens of millions of fake bots, to make the conservatives think that they were in the minority. It was all planned and organized. It was a classic communist propaganda operation. And they've been outed, they've been caught. And of course, the Washington Post and CBS News and CNN and NBC, Los Angeles Times, none of them are talking about it. You go to their websites, there's nothing there. Nothing. It's like it didn't happen. Of course, for them, they don't want to talk about it because they're involved in it. And there has to be an accountability. This is a cabal. And eventually, I believe that we will find the evidence that links them to Beijing.
And that will be explosive.
And at that point, they are enemies of the state. They are enemies of the people. At that point, Doc, when we find evidence that American media personnel and big tech personnel worked directly with Beijing, they have become enemies, domestic enemies. They are enemies of the Constitution, enemies of the people, and they have lost all protection at that point because they will then be identified as foreign agents, working for foreign agents. It would have been no different in 1776 to find out that somebody at the local newspaper was secretly working for King George.
Right. Be the very same thing.
That's right. And we all know what would have happened to him. That's how big the scandal is. And everything that we suspected is being verified. That there was a massive censorship and propaganda campaign going on. And what's coming out next is the COVID documents. I mean, last night, Elon Musk, and we're going to talk about here, Elon Musk tweeted on his Twitter, that my pronouns are prosecute Fauci.
Yes.
Well, that means he's already read the internal documents. And he knows that Fauci and the CDC were working with the Twitter executives to do two things: censor critics of the lockdowns and the vaccines, and to promote a fake narrative. Now think about it, Doc. they would censor conservatives, and we got permanently banned by Twitter for posting a news article in which we ask a question about sudden death of people being vaccinated. That was the question that we asked, and they shut us down. They accuse people like you and me of peddling fake news, medical misinformation.
Yes.
The truth is, they were the biggest peddlers of fake news and medical misinformation. They lied to the American people. They told the people the vaccines were safe.
They told it right from the beginning.
They lied. They told the people that they would not get COVID. They lied.
100% effective. Remember
Yes, they lied. They told people that no one was dying from the vaccines. They lied. They spread medical disinformation. They spread fake news. They stopped the people who were telling the truth and then flipped it on them and said, we're shutting you down because you're spreading medical misinformation, when it was the tech companies that were spreading the misinformation. That's how twisted and diabolical this thing is. Let's go down to let's go over to number 32. New York Post. Congressman McCarthy vows to subpoena 51 ex-intelligence chiefs who called the New York Post Hunter Biden story disinformation. There again, there's the very thing we're talking about.
Right.
So the New York Post back in 2020 did an excellent job reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop, and they got slandered that they were publishing disinformation, Russian disinformation.
Yes.
What these intel people said is that New York Post, they got duped by the Russians, and they believe it's real. They believe that this stuff that they say is Hunter Biden's laptop, they believe it's real. And we, the intelligence agencies, we know it's Russian disinformation. They lied.
Yes.
They lied, and they lied, and they knew they were lying.
And they lied even in their statements, because they would come out and say, they would never call it directly Russian disinformation. They would say it has all the earmarks of Russian disinformation.
No, their tactics had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation.
So, well, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has vowed to subpoena those 51 former intelligence officials who called the Post Hunter Biden expose Russian disinformation in the wake of the Twitter files revelations about how the social media colossus censored the reporting. The California Republican, who is expected to become Speaker when the GOP takes control of the House of Representatives in January, said what Twitter did with the Post bombshell 2020 October report was egregious. And we have a short clip with Mr. McCarthy here.
Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy, last question. We saw the revelations coming out of Twitter as Elon Musk is unmasking the corruption that existed there and the denials that they testified about. So for you personally, you have another move you want to make. Not only do we want to hear from the former executives at Twitter and maybe the other entities, you have something else you want to say.
Yeah, I do, because this is egregious what we're finding. They shouldn't have Section 230 to start out with. But we also have to go further. What did Facebook and Google do as well? Because they became an arm of the Democratic Party and the arm of government. But what difference we're going to do, those 51 intel agents that signed a letter that said the Hunter Biden information was all wrong, was Russia collusion, many of them have a security clearance. We're going to bring them before committee. I'm going to have them have a hearing, bring them and subpoena them before committee. Why did they sign it? Why did they lie to the American public? A Clapper, a Brennan. Why did you use the reputation that America was able to give to you, more information, but use it for a political purpose and lie to the American public? It's exactly what Adam Schiff has done to us, and this has got to stop.
You deserve to be Speaker. I hope you get the votes. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it, Kevin McCarthy.
I'll believe it when I see it. How about that?
I'm with you, Doc. I'm with you. Circus acts. I want to get back to Fauci. I mentioned a few minutes ago that Elon Musk is calling for Fauci to be prosecuted. Well, you know, in April of 2021, I took it even further. I said, take Fauci to Guantanamo and waterboard him until he coughs up the truth about what he knows about Wuhan and the development of COVID-19. I was vilified. Now, look, I wasn't serious about waterboarding. The point I was making was Fauci needs to be arrested and he needs to be interrogated.
And treated as a foreign agent.
Treated as a potential foreign agent. That's what I meant. With none of this kid glove stuff treatment that he was getting and adoration as some kind of hero. He's not a hero. Fauci is a scoundrel. And he should have been handcuffed and taken away. Instead, you've got the intelligence community of this country providing cover for him, which makes you wonder what's going on in the intelligence agencies. So Elon Musk called on to prosecute Fauci. He said Elon Musk on Sunday called to prosecute Anthony Fauci, the chief medical advisor to President Biden, who has led the U.S. response to the COVID-19 pandemic since it started during the Trump administration. And Musk drew swift backlash for his comment, "My pronouns are prosecute Fauci." He later shared a meme edited to show Fauci telling Biden, "Just one more lockdown, my king." Now, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky spoke up quickly on Sunday.
Yes, Fauci's resignation should not prevent a full-throated investigation into the origins of the pandemic. He must be required to testify under oath regarding any discussions he participated in concerning the Wuhan lab leak. His policies destroyed lives, and that was in response to Elon Musk pronoun tweet of prosecute Fauci.
Well, the Democrats immediately came out defending Fauci and denouncing Elon Musk for suggesting that Fauci be prosecuted.
So first out of the gate is Amy Klobuchar. I'm a big fan of Dr. Fauci. I bet you are. He's calmly guided our country through crisis. Regarding the Musk tweet, courting vaccine deniers doesn't seem like a smart business strategy, but the issue is this. Could you just leave a good man alone in your seemingly endless quest for attention? Another Representative Dean Phillips, he responded to the Musk tweet. "It's America. You can select any pronouns you damn well please, but Anthony Fauci has likely saved more human lives than any living person in the world. Shame on you." An old friend, John Brennan, he came out of some closet somewhere and had this tweet. "Dr. Fauci is a national hero." He's a hero, Rick.
Yeah, in China.
He'll be remembered for generations to come for his innate goodness. Remember him torturing puppies and many contributions to public health. Despite your business success, speaking to Elon Musk, you'll be remembered most for fueling public hate and divisions. You may have money, but you have no class.
Okay, so Brennan was one of the 51 intelligence officials who signed that deceptive letter saying that, basically insinuating that Trump was a pawn of the Russians and that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. Brennan's grandfather, no, I take that back, Brennan himself voted for the American Communist Party, the Communist Party USA. He voted communists, and that came out in his confirmation hearings, and he still got confirmed.
Of course.
It's unbelievable. Hey, why did we have this elf made? I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you the real reason. Because the one thing that these freaks can't stand is when people laugh at them. They don't care if you get mad. They laugh at you when you get mad. They laugh at you when you get mad. They thrive on it when you're angry at them because they know that they have you and they're controlling you and they got you angry and you don't know what to do and you're frustrated. But when we laugh at them, oh my, they can't handle it. They don't know what to do when the people start to laugh at them as clowns, as idiots, as buffoons. And we know what they are and what they've been doing, and they don't make us angry anymore. We've gone beyond the anger stage. See, we ought to be past the anger stage with Fauci. We ought to be past the anger stage with all these people and now be laughing at them because we're on to them. We've got them figured out, and we're not going to let them get away with what they've done. And we start laughing at them and make fun of them and cause them to be humiliated. That's why we made this elf, to make fun of Fauci. Some people have written to me and go, I don't see anything funny about Fauci. Well, no, Fauci himself's not funny. But what we have to do is make fun of him. The way to get under Fauci's skin is to make fun of him. That's the reason we made this elf, to get under his skin. Because what I want this elf all over the country. I want people talking about it online. I want people tweeting about it. I want people handing this out as gifts and driving Fauci crazy that he's been reduced to an elf.
And that's all they'll remember him as.
Yes, this is what he will be remembered as, an elf. That's why we made it. And so I'm encouraging you to order some Fauci elves and help spread laughter about Anthony Fauci. And let's bring him down to the size he should be. A little imp that we laugh at and say, never again, Fauci, never again will you pull off your magic on the American people like you did for several years. It'll never happen again. And when we laugh at them, they absolutely go bonkers. They don't know what to do. Leftists can't stand to be laughed at. They love to be talked about. They love people to be angry. That tells them they have power. When you're angry about them, what they hear is, oh, we've got power over you. You're angry. But when you laugh at them, it means they've lost their power over you. So get yourself some of these elves. Go to truenews.com, click the banner right there. It will take you to the place to order, and we will get your Fauci elves out to you right away as soon as we can possibly do it. That's it for today. Doc, anything else before we wrap it up?
No, I just want to say it's good to have you back. Yeah, I know last week was a long week for you, traveling and everything, but good to have you back here in Florida.
Thank you. The Lord gave me, really gave me supernatural energy. On the ground, I had so much energy. And you know the hours I was putting in. You know, I was recording True News around midnight, and then going to bed about 3 a.m., getting up at 6, and I had meetings every day. But when I got on the plane, Doc, I am not kidding you, the moment we got, into the sky, I went out. I went to sleep. I slept through the meal, and I probably slept 7 hours.
Good. On
the flight. I hope I didn't snore because I was out. Nobody woke me up, said please stop it. But I was so tired. I couldn't open up my eyes. It was an 11.5-hour flight, and I probably read a book for about 3 or 4 hours afterwards. But I would think I slept about 7. And then when I got home, I had to go to I had to go to Chicago. And so I was going to try for Friday's program, but it just got to Chicago too late. When I went into the customs, immigration. I'm not exaggerating. I would say that there was at least 2,500 people in line.
Oh my goodness.
I thought,
There'd been no way.
I am not going to do it. The moment I walked in there, I said, I'm not going to do True News. I know that. I can't get through this line fast enough. Of course, if I'd get my eyes scanned and, do the biometrics, I could, they make it easy for you.
Right.
Just submit, Doc. Just
That's
submit.
right.
And it'll be easy.
Here's the slave line over here.
Yeah, slaves over here, and those who submit get to go through faster. But then, by the time I got to Orlando, it was, I don't know, about 10:30, I think, when I left Orlando Airport. I walked into my house at midnight, and I did sleep till 9:30 the next morning, so I got rested up. I reset my clock pretty fast, but it was an excellent, awesome trip. It was all business, and the Lord's favor was on me every place I went, and we had excellent responses, and just good things are happening with this ministry in Jordan. That's all I can say, and we'll go into 2023 and see where this is going.
That's right. So
we're walking through it one step at a time, one door at a time, and just doing it by faith and obedience. Love you a great deal. Get yourself a Fauci elf, laugh yourself away, and just make fun of this little imp, and get a bunch of them and hand it out to your friends and neighbors. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.
God bless you.